Welcome back, sports fans. Another episode of the Brew and Shaver Sports Podcast. As we are in the wilderness known as the off season of college football,
Well
although
said.
there's plenty of news to talk about as we
That's
come
right.
to you from the state of Louisiana, who produced more NFL draft picks than any other state per capita. We're not as big as the Texas and the Californias and the Floridas, but we sure know how to produce homegrown football talent.
Exactly. Still producing talent. That's exactly right.
It is so much fun
Oh
here.
yeah.
I imagine if you're watching this show, you're a sports fan, and high school football is probably a huge thing where you are as well. It's something that really spans across the country, Darren, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It doesn't matter. And of course, even when you listen to people talk about college recruiting, there's still going to be certain states that get a mention. Texas, California, Louisiana, Florida, Ohio. Those states, just the ones that pop out, they're going to get a mention. But you know what? I guarantee you, you go to middle of nowhere, Iowa on a Friday night in October, there is a town that has a stadium in it that is packed. And it is what everybody in the place is doing. So you're exactly right. It doesn't matter where you are, you can find good quality high school football. Fun to watch.
Yeah, it is. It's a great American tradition.
Absolutely.
We are going to talk some more about football, but right now we're going to start with the SEC softball and baseball tournaments because we have the seedings for both tournaments. Let's go ahead and start with the softball side of things. The number one seed is the perennial contender Oklahoma Sooners. Before they got in the SEC, they pretty much dominated women's softball, and here they are, the number one
Yep.
seed in the SEC. They haven't slowed down much, have they, Darren?
No, they have not. They're still just absolutely incredible. They're doing what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, what Texas is doing in all the other sports. Oklahoma is just like, oh, okay, different location. We're just still just going to beat everybody. Okay, that's that's the way they're treating softball.
Yeah. The other day, we were watching the Kentucky Derby, which is a huge sporting event, first weekend of
Absolutely.
May every year. And I look over, and my son-in-law is watching something on his phone. I'm like, "What are you watching?" He said, "Oklahoma softball."
Nice.
There you go.
Well, they are fun to watch. You can't deny that. They are very fun to
They
watch.
are
They're
fun to watch.
good.
And Sovereignty was fun to watch in that race, a muddy track at Churchill Downs. Wasn't
Absolutely.
sure, but for those poor jockeys, did you see them after the race?
They look like a scene from a comedy movie where like somebody's trying to help push a car out of the mud and it spins, and that's what every single jockey looked like they'd been caught in a really bad mudslinging incident.
Yeah. But how about the fact that every horse in that race was a descendant of Secretariat?
That is absolutely unreal. That's an amazing stat, and just I mean, it just goes to the legacy of Secretariat. I mean, it's absolutely unreal.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is part of Darren, why we have so much fun on this show. We went from softball to Kentucky Derby. We got it's like I think we both have ADD because
At
we see
least
lots of
sports ADD, right?
squirrels and we chase them.
How about that Oklahoma softball
Yeah,
secretariat? What just
yeah.
happened?
So you'll notice, speaking of chasing squirrels, we have scrolling headlines on the in news information on the bottom of the screen as if you're watching us on YouTube
Mhm.
right now. And the first thing is, hey, would you do us a favor? It would mean a lot to us if you hit that subscribe button. We appreciate
Yes,
any support, all support that you give. We're a couple guys that love talking about sports, and we love the fact that you love to tune in with us and share this journey together. So
absolutely.
that mean a lot to us. And if you keep reading along the scrolling on the bottom, you'll see updates on SEC softball, baseball, when SEC football begins, all that information, and that will be updated throughout future shows. So if you're reading the screen right now with the SEC softball seeds, Oklahoma is number one, and the way it goes is so A&M is two, Texas is three, Texas is 4, or Tennessee is 4.
Well, wrong
Arkansas,
T. Wrong T.
yeah, too much orange,
Oops.
right?
Yeah.
Compacted together.
You're not going to get me to disagree with that.
For a guy like me who can't even pick out his own clothes because I don't see colors well, that really is confusing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Arkansas, then at number 5. So Florida would be 6, and just keep going down. Auburn is 15, the last
Yep.
seed in the tournament, which starts this week, Darren.
Yeah, it starts actually the day we will release this. It starts actually Tuesday on the 6th. Now, obviously, as the way tournaments work, Oklahoma, A&M, Texas, and Tennessee are not playing Tuesday, but Auburn, Missouri, Kentucky, Georgia, Ole Miss, you're excited about watching your team play on Tuesday or today. So you'll get those first round games, and it'll be fun to watch. So it'll be, depending on when you're watching this, you might be watching us talk about it on one screen and a game on the other screen. Who knows?
Hey, a lot of us do that, Darren.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And now with YouTube TV, the fact that the multi-view, and I read somewhere they're going to let you start picking out the specific games you want on the multi-view.
That's just going to be so next level. I'm so excited about that. I was already excited about the multi-view, even if the fourth game over in the bottom left corner was, Illinois, Nebraska. I didn't really care, but the other three, at least you had the option. That's what I was still all the way in for it. So that was an exciting thing that they did for sure.
Let's move over to the SEC men's baseball. But before we do that,
Yep.
we want to give a shout out to a local school, Louisiana State University Shreveport. The
Yes.
Pilots are now 51-0 on the season. Is that just not phenomenal?
That is so insane. And I loved seeing the headline 51. I'm trying to think of the local headline. It said 51-0 Pilots selected as home seed. Oh, really?
Surprise.
That had to come as a shock to the program.
So that's what it takes to host a home game.
51-0 is what it takes. Is that not amazing? I don't care. Like we said last week, I don't care what level it is. 51-0, unbelievable. Such an incredible accomplishment by this program.
Yeah, and their most recent game, they beat Louisiana Christian. I think it was 11-1.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they don't play again till May 12th. So that's Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be the next time we record, and maybe we'll have some updates on that. But just a phenomenal season, unlike any that we've ever seen on any
Yeah.
level.
And I can't remember who the opponent was, but the game before that 11-0 when they beat whoever their game before that was like 22-3 or 24-1, or it was just this. And they've had games like that all year. It's been really unreal what they are able to do.
Brutal for their opponents.
It is not one of those you look forward to on the schedule for sure.
Let's go over to the men SEC in the top 25 as we get nearer to the men's tournament. Texas is holding on to that number 1 spot despite having a rough series against Arkansas. Arkansas really showed up to play.
Yeah.
And between now and our next show, Darren, there's a huge series between Arkansas and LSU that is going to have major postseason ramifications. So
absolutely.
A lot of baseball to be played, and I was talking to an A&M fan the other day because A&M just won a series against LSU, but previously they got blanked by Texas. And talking to this A&M fan, and what we both came to the conclusion is this is just the SEC. This is life in the SEC. So
that's exactly right. It's unreal that you can, and actually Zach, who you were talking about, he and I were talking Sunday morning about how not only is it life in the SEC that you can be swept one weekend and then turn around and sweep a team that's ahead of you in the rankings, in the top 25 the next weekend, but also you can be absolute, just look like nothing is happening right on Friday and Saturday and get turned around Sunday and run rule the team that beat you by 6 runs 2 nights in a row, and then you run rule them and beat them 12. It's amazing how many twists and turns there are to the season right now.
Yeah, if you're not an SEC fan, you probably get tired of us saying it, but there are literally no gimme games in
No.
this league. Definitely not in baseball. Definitely.
And that's why right now today most services, the experts have at least 13 teams in postseason play. Making the tournament, not necessarily Omaha, but making the national tournament. So, and that explains it right there.
Not saying what? Say that again.
That not necessarily in Omaha, but
Oh, there it
making it
is.
in.
There it is. Say that again.
Oh, Omaha,
Isn't it
Omaha.
amazing the power of suggestion?
Yeah,
When you said that,
absolutely.
you suddenly it sounded like Peyton Manning's voice. I'm like, how did Darren do that? He's talking in Darren voice, and all of a sudden he morphed into Peyton Manning voice. That's phenomenal.
It,
How do you do that?
have you watched any of his the Omaha productions on ESPN Plus? That's the last thing is that production goes off. They do all the credits, and
Mm-hmm.
the last thing, the word Omaha
Yeah.
pops up. You hear Omaha, Omaha. It's like, God, it's like just stuck. You're talking about part of the vernacular of football forever. That's it right there.
You're bringing it. You're bringing it today. Vernacular.
Vernacular. That's our
Wow.
word of the day.
That's what us folks down here call the way you talk.
Exactly. Yeah. What's
But
that?
Darren,
I just used the $5 word. That's enough to
I
say
know. I
it.
mean, what do you expect from a Vanderbilt fan, right?
See, there you go.
Somebody's been reading the thesaurus.
I'm pretty sure that there was a time, long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, when I was selling medical products as the daytime job. I was walking through a hospital parking lot carrying a Vanderbilt bag that I had all my product in, and a doctor saw it. I didn't say I went to Vanderbilt, but he assumed. Pretty sure that's why we got the business. But I'm just, whatever works. I don't care.
Yeah.
That's the kind of name Vanderbilt carries. That's the weight that name carries.
Whatever works. Whatever works.
Exactly.
You got the business, but we go down to Baton Rouge wearing LSU stuff, we'll get fed.
Yeah, that's right. And fed well, just for the record.
Let's talk a little bit about football, even though we still got a ways to go. We want to talk about the upcoming season, particularly the over under as far as predictions for this fall.
And what these are, there we go. There's the first group. These are from CBS Sports. Well, actually, CBS Sports Online reporting what FanDuel has put out. Is that, do we take enough turns there?
I think you gave credit to everybody there.
Yes. And we saw the article on X, and I think there was a graphic on Instagram. No, okay.
And I had this dream last night. No.
Exactly. So these are the first. The CBS Sports article just did it in alphabetical order, so we just pulled the same thing. So these are the first 8, Alabama through Mississippi State, and what this number is, the number underneath the team logo is the over under of how many wins the team will have during the 2025 season, and this is the betting mark. So if you were to bet Alabama, if you were to say they're going to hit the over, you're saying they're going to have more than 9.5 wins. So they're saying, even though the halves are a bit silly, they're saying herein, this is the pocket kind of where the win total sits for the season for these teams.
Wow. Did Gary Danielson have something to do with this? Alabama 9.5? Really?
Exactly. Exactly.
I understand Georgia 9.5. I think that might be a little high for Alabama.
Yeah, I'm in complete and total agreement. I don't see we're going to stop for just a second. Mississippi State is 3.5, not 8.5. I'll
You
edit
about
that.
gave me a heart attack, Darren. I saw LSU at 8.5 and Mississippi State at 8.5. I thought, what just happened? I thought there was good news today that AJ Halsey, safety from Houston, signs with LSU. That actually dropped us 5 wins this year.
Exactly.
Goodness.
So Mississippi State's 3.5, not 8.5.
Oh my goodness. Whew.
But I do find it interesting that you have
honey,
Alabama.
I don't need that nitro pill. I'm okay now. All right, it's okay. Whew,
all is well. All is well. I do find Georgia and Alabama within the same win total very, very interesting. And when we flip to the second group of 8, there's another group. There's another team that has a 9.5 win total that I had to double check it. Obviously, more than I double checked Mississippi State, but I had to double check it because my mind was blown that they have a 9.5. But we'll get to that in a minute. What do you think about LSU and 8.5? Is that feels low to me when you look at their schedule, when you look at what they've done in the portal and recruiting? It feels a little bit low to me. What are your thoughts?
If that is LSU's win total,
8.5. That's what they're saying. 8.5
wins.
Yeah.
I don't know if Brian Kelly keeps his job with the amount of money that's been poured into NIL, signing players in the transfer portal. He has an absolutely stacked roster this year.
Yep.
If he doesn't make the playoffs, I don't know I think the patience in Baton Rouge is going to run out.
I agree. But even with a stacked roster, I think one of the things that, not that he's been necessarily at any point been bad, but I think there has to be an elevation to Garrett Nussmeier's game this year to get them to that 10, 11 win total, guarantees a playoff, possibly in the SEC championship game. I think that's one of the things that has to happen for us to see that win total, for them to hit that over 8.5 to get to 10 or 11 wins. I think he has to elevate it. And I think he can. I'm not saying that that's like this impossible thing, because he's shown some incredible flashes. So I think if he can get it to all kind of come together, to me, I feel like LSU at 9.5 is more realistic than Alabama at 9.5. I think those two should be flipped. I can see Alabama at 8.5, maybe having a 9-win season to hit the over. But I think LSU can go over that, truthfully.
Yeah.
What about? Go ahead.
I don't know if Nussmeier is the key. I think
he's doing behind the scenes work now.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I was thinking Gary Danielson. I thought we were still talking about Alabama. Go ahead. Talk about Nussmeier. I apologize.
Darren, I know it's Cinco de Mayo. Did you have a margarita before the show?
With Gary Danielson. Go ahead, Nussmeier. I apologize.
I agree. Nussmeier has to keep getting better. I don't think the season's riding on his shoulders, though. LSU's defense. We're going to get the second year with Blake Baker. He's brought in some more players. Nussmeier, on the offensive side, he's surrounded with weapons like he was last year. I'm not too worried about the offense. The defense, though, when you look at some of those games, like when they lost to A&M, and A&M just the defense looked horrible, and that was really LSU's Achilles heel, and that put the offense in a situation where Nussmeier started trying to force things,
doing too much. Yeah,
and so I think with a better defense, that takes some of the pressure off Nussmeier. But I like Nussmeier. I think he's a solid quarterback, and I have no concerns about him heading into this season. I think there's some concerns, though, if you look at this over under with Auburn fans, with Florida fans. Yeah. The season last year in Florida exceeded expectations, but they're not going to be happy in Gainesville with 6 or 7 wins, and I don't think they're going to be happy in Auburn with 7 or 8 wins. They're wanting to see more growth than that.
I think 6.5 or 6, 7 wins in Florida is the last we see of our good friend Billy. I think that would be it. That's the end of the line for him. I'm interested by that 7.5 for Auburn. I wonder if 8 is still not enough, but maybe 9 is. To keep status quo in Auburn. But I think if they don't, I think anything 7 or less, and that's Hugh Freeze's. That's a bad deal for him. So I think he has to hit the over of that 7.5, and I think Florida has to. I think with the improvements they've had at quarterback and everything, I think he's got to get to 8 or 9 wins at least before, and there'll probably still be some rumblings then, even at 8 or 9. Um, what about Kentucky at 4.5?
Oh, well,
Is
that's
that the end of the road? If they do that, if they come in at 4 wins,
well. You have to wonder. You have to wonder. I know football's second fiddle in Lexington to um, basketball, but man, even that's oh goodness.
yeah,
Hmm.
I don't
That,
know.
that's pre Mark Stoops numbers, 4.5.
Yeah, I don't know how he survives that. Because really, honestly, what you're saying is if they, and I know we're not really digging into schedules, but this Kentucky thing really stood out to me. If they have a 4-win season, that means that 14 years in, whatever it is for Mark Stoops, and he's assembled a team good enough to beat Toledo, Eastern Michigan, Tennessee Tech, and then sneak in. I mean, if you're being realistic and honest and looking at the schedule, sneak in a win over a Vanderbilt or a Louisville, one of those two. And if that's where we are, 14 years, I think is the number in. That's got to be time to move on. I don't see how it's not.
Yeah, I think we see massive changes in all of. I think you see them if these numbers hold up. You
Hmm.
see it at Arkansas, Kentucky, Auburn, LSU, Florida, and Mississippi State.
So you think if Mississippi State it has a 4-win, let's say that if they're at 3.5, even if they have like a 4-win year, you think that's it for the is it Jeff Levy? You think he's
Hmm.
done after 2 years?
I think he has to hit at least 500 this year.
Yeah, got to make it to a bowl,
Yeah, make it to a bowl.
basically.
Hmm.
Okay, that makes sense to me. All right, you want to move on to the second group?
Yeah, let's go to the second.
Anything else jumps out at you? Okay.
Well, I'll go back.
Okay.
I think it's realistic for Alabama to be a 9-win team. Um,
Right.
so that may not be as off as we think it is, but
I I don't think they're a double-digit win team. I don't think they'll hit the over though. I think they'll be 9 or less.
yeah,
I don't think they'll win all but 2 games this year. I really, and I can be wrong. I mean, I know there's the reuniting of the offense and the old offensive coordinator and all that kind of, but I think they're 9 or less. I don't think they're 10, 11, 12 wins.
yeah. Oh, wow. That quarterback from Tennessee they just brought in, he must be a good one.
That's the number that jumped out of me. It is mind blowing to me that Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, and Alabama are all at 9.5 wins. I
Yeah.
don't understand Tennessee being now. I think some of it is frustration with the situation. I think Tennessee fans, are being a little too rambunctious in their downplay of the level of talent that Nico brought to the field. But I do think I, this is an opportunity for Heupel to show what his offense can do. If they end up being a 10-win team this year, well, you talk about showing you're an offensive genius that can scheme to make anything happen. That's what Heupel has done this year. If they end up being a double digit win team, I don't think it'll happen. I think Tennessee fans are going to have to be patient this year. But boy, he would just you talking about solidifying your name up there in the rank of offensive geniuses to look at a play sheet. He will do it if they pull off 10 wins or more this year.
Yeah, that would be spectacular.
Oh. beyond.
we
Absolutely.
know we know the expectations in Austin are sky high this year.
Yep.
We get to
Yep.
see the debut of Arch Manning leading that
Yep.
offense. Uh, A&M, I would think maybe I'd probably go maybe 8.5 on them. That
I
may
agree.
be that's a little low. South Carolina, they got Lenore Sellers coming back, a great quarterback. I think Oklahoma may be a little low. I might put them closer to 8 because
Agree.
they're not going. Norman's another place that is they expect their football team to
Yep.
achieve a high level, and they're not going to be satisfied with mediocre seasons. So, yeah, if that holds true, we're going to see changes in Norman.
Agree completely. Agree completely.
What do you think as a Vanderbilt fan about the 4.5?
I don't um I understand where it comes from because I think you can look at last season and say, okay, on the outside looking in, um, what's Vanderbilt's track record of catching lightning in a bottle twice? You know, they had a couple of years ago, Clark Lee's second year, had those two great wins, one against Florida, one against Kentucky. 5 wins. Everybody's talking. Here we go. Next year we're a bowl team. Next year we're a bowl team. And the Lightning was everywhere but the bottle. They were a 2-win team. I would say the difference is the change in the entire structure of the organization that you've seen that produced what it produced last year. The largest majority of the team that you watched pull off a pretty incredible feat for a Vanderbilt team. Obviously, the Alabama win is unreal, but beyond the Alabama win, what this team looked like against Georgia Tech, for them to be returning what they're returning on the team that looked the way they did in that bowl game, I, I think 4.5 is not accurate. I think they, at a minimum, are a bowl team this year. I think 6 to maybe even 6.5. Now they do have a little bit of a tough schedule, and obviously as we get more into talking season, we'll look at individual schedules and breakdown and stuff. But I feel like 6.5, somewhere in that 6-7 mark, I think is possible this year.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think Clark Lee continues to mold that
Mm-hmm.
team. Diego, he's got his quarterback back for this year.
Yep.
Um, I just don't see them going backwards.
I don't either. It would really, even as a Vanderbilt fan, as we've talked about, Brandon and I having this in common as fans of our school. Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. Even as a Vanderbilt fan, if they go backwards and aren't a bowl team this year, I would be legitimately disappointed. I have a much higher expectation than 4.5 wins this year, and I think it's a reasonable expectation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
What about Missouri? If they come in at 7 wins or even 6 wins, is our buddy Eli a victim of his own success?
I don't think this year he would be.
Okay.
I think he's earned some leeway. I think even if Missouri puts up a 7-win or 6-win season, there'll be a lot of disappointment. But I don't think his job's going to be in jeopardy. His seat might get a little warm.
But they'll kind of turn the page to next year. All right, that was a
I
that
think
was a one off. Let's see what we've got.
I think most people they wouldn't admit this, but I think Missouri officials know we're Missouri. These are our
Right.
expectations. I'm not sure that they're expecting to win the SEC every year.
Right. Right.
Like
Absolutely.
I think the expectations are different in Missouri than they are in Tuscaloosa, uh, where everyone expects Alabama to contend every year. And now what Kirby Smart's done in Georgia, where they expect that every year, and where the rest of the SEC is.
Hmm.
That's where we want to be. I know
Right.
all the
Absolutely.
talking Baton Rouge with Brian Kelly and this roster. We want to be that next program that every year is in the mix for an SEC title. So I don't think those expectations are the same up in Missouri. Could be wrong.
And, and I agree. I think you're right, and I think truthfully, he probably has to get to 8 to even just quite the. I think even the conversation would be quieter at that point. If
Mhm.
he could get to 8 wins, I think even though there'd be some disappointment, they're like, okay, all right, well, we're moving toward next year. I think that would really turn the page, an 8-win season. Now we have to talk about Big Game Lane, 8.5. What does that look like for the Ole Miss fan base if he comes in at 8 wins, 8-4, not 9-3, but 8-4 or less? If he's under that win total,
I don't think they're going to be under that win total.
I
And
agree.
Kiffin seems to have found a home in Oxford that
Agree.
seems to be mutual. He loves it there. They love him. He brings an exciting brand of football, competitive. He's a fiery coach. I think anywhere from 8 to 10 wins a year. Yeah, they want to be closer to 10 wins, but they're
Hmm.
just ecstatic with what Kiffin has done there. So, uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, unless they're below 500, there's not going to be any rumblings in Oxford.
And I think going back to exactly what you've said, what he's built, I think 8 to 10 wins every year, somewhere in that range, I think is realistic. I don't think they're not being some other schools that think every year they should contend for the national championship, even though they're not going to. I think they're realistic in 8 to 10 wins because especially right in today's world as it stands with college football, 10 wins, the right wins against the right teams, you never know what the postseason is going to look like.
Yeah, and along those lines, I want to go back to Oklahoma. This is the college that Bud Wilkinson put on the map for as
Hmm.
far as football. And you had coaches like Barry Switzer, and Sooner fans remember those days when they just
Absolutely.
beat the tar out of everybody. And
Yep.
so
Yep.
I think Venable's seat is very warm right now. And
Absolutely.
if he only hits 6, 7 wins this year, I think the folks in Norman start shopping around for a coach.
Yeah. And you know what? That goes to the very thing you've said about expectations. That's the way it's going to be in Oklahoma. And on the other side, you were talking about being realistic as a Missouri fan, being realistic as a Vanderbilt fan. If Clark Lee can find a way to build that program to 6 wins year in and year out, and you sneak into an eighth or a ninth every once in a while, he has a 6, 7, 8 year run like that. I mean, they're building a statue of Clark Lee out in front of the stadium.
Oh yeah.
Nobody's talking about an SEC championship being, we didn't contend. We're not, because that's the next level. That's
Hmm.
building the program.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's where the challenge is before Mark Stoops, as you
Yeah,
mentioned, with his tenure in Lexington, going backwards.
exactly.
That's just not a good sign.
No, no, it's not a positive in any way. And, you look at their schedule, going back to Kentucky in that 4.5. It could be a difficult year in the Bluegrass State this year in football world. It's going to be interesting to see.
I know it's a different sport, but if you look on the basketball side, Calipari was still winning games,
Oh yeah.
but it wasn't up to the standard that Kentucky fans
Mhm.
expected. So at some point, how's that going to
Yeah,
transit? Affect Mark Stoops?
absolutely. That's a great point.
Because if you have another season like this year and you only hit 4.5, those stands at Kroger Field they're gonna get
Yeah,
start looking empty.
that's exactly right. Because people do not sit in Lexington winter. I know it's not Michigan, but people are not going to sit in Lexington winter in November to watch a 3-win team hope for one more win.
But
It's not going to
the
happen.
good news for the Kentucky fans is that their coach is not going to be suspended for at least 2 games this year.
That's right. Speaking of Michigan, having so much, I don't know, unruliness on your team that even post next administration, you still got people being suspended.
Yep.
Big Ten football. I couldn't pass that one up. Couldn't help myself.
I thought we'd throw that bone out there for Doug the Buckeye and see if we rouse him from his off-season slumber. Haven't heard from him in a while.
He'll be posting about us being his favorite SEC podcast. That's what
I'm pretty sure we're the only SEC podcast he listens to.
Exactly.
Oh gosh, it's gonna be interesting though. So.
Oh yeah, it's we're let's see, man, what is that? We're 115 days ish, 115 days to kick off roughly. But It's already exciting and fun to talk about.
Yeah, and today spring football started here in Louisiana, so you start seeing things like that, and you start thinking toward the fall. And I do want to give a shout out to a former SEC quarterback, Dak Prescott, the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, now played at Mississippi State. He's from Houghton, right here in our community, and he recently donated $1.1 million to his alma mater's football program, Houghton High School. So
that's incredible.
I think when guys show acts of generosity like that, and they remember where they came from, and they want to help, that's just a great story. And
absolutely,
what a great move on Dak's part to bless his hometown the way he has.
Very awesome. That is a very, very cool thing.
So remember, new episodes come out every Tuesday. We appreciate you watching. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. If there's something that you think we should cover that we're not covering, we'd love to hear it from you. And until then, keep watching SEC softball and baseball, and we'll talk more next Tuesday. So y'all take care.
Have a great week. Thank you for making the Brew and Shaver Sports Podcast your go-to sports show. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our show if you haven't already. Your feedback is important. Let us know what you think about this week's show. Send an email to brewandshavers@gmail.com or text to our text line, 318-390-3599. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you again for listening to the Brew and Shaver Sports Podcast. See you next week.